They found him in the torpedo room at 0300 hours, standing perfectly still, staring at tube number 4. When Carter asked him what he was doing, Petty Officer Daniels whispered into the darkness, "Sir, someone's been stealing our air." Captain William Iron Hand Carter had commanded the USS Phantom for 3 years. He knew every bolt, every pipe, every sound his boat made when she moved through the deep. He knew his crew, 47 souls who trusted him with their lives every time they submerged. But on this November morning in 1944, somewhere in the Philippine Trench, he realized he didn't know them at all. The Phantom had been running silent for 6 days, tracking a Japanese supply convoy through some of the deepest waters in the Pacific. Standard patrol, nothing unusual, until the oxygen readings started dropping faster than they should. Chief Engineer Marcus Gears Thompson first noticed it on day 4. "Captain, we're burning through O2 30% faster than normal," he'd reported, his weathered face creased with concern. Carter had run through the checklist, check the scrubbers, inspect the CO2 systems, hunt for leaks. Everything checked out. The equipment was functioning perfectly, which meant the problem wasn't mechanical, it was human. Someone was consuming more oxygen than they should, or someone was deliberately venting it. But why? The question kept Carter awake that night, listening to the hull creak under 300 meters of pressure, the sound like bones settling in a grave. On day 5, Carter ordered a full inventory. Every compartment, every system, every man accounted for at all times. Still nothing. But the oxygen kept dropping. By evening, they had enough air for maybe 72 hours. After that, the crew would start making mistakes, hallucinating, fighting, and then they'd start dying. That night, Carter made a decision. He gathered his senior officers in the tiny wardroom. Morrison, his executive officer, Rodriguez, the chief of the boat, Chen, his sonar specialist, and Dr. Elias Venn, the ship's surgeon. "Someone on this boat is sabotaging our air supply," Carter said flatly. Morrison's face went pale. "Sabotage? Sir, these men are human," Carter interrupted. "And humans break, or they're turned, or they're not who we think they are." Dr. Venn leaned forward, his pale eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You're suggesting we have a spy, a Japanese agent?" "I'm suggesting we have someone who wants us dead," Carter said. "Whether they're enemy, insane, or just desperate, doesn't matter. We need to find them before the air runs out." Rodriguez cracked his knuckles, a sound like small bones breaking. "Captain, with respect, if we start a witch hunt on this boat, we'll tear the crew apart faster than any saboteur could." Carter knew Bull was right. Submarine crews lived in a pressure cooker even on good days. Suspicion and paranoia could spread faster than fire. But what choice did he have? "We do this quietly," Carter said. "No announcements, no accusations. We watch, we listen, and we find whoever's doing this before they kill us all." But someone had already been watching. That night, at 300 hours, Petty Officer Daniels stood in front of Torpedo 2 Tube number 4. When Carter found him there, summoned by the watch officer who'd noticed Daniels acting strangely, the young sailor's eyes were unfocused, distant. "Daniels," Carter said softly, approaching carefully. "What are you doing?" Daniels didn't move. "He told me to open it, sir." Carter's blood ran cold. "Who told you?" "The man in the tube." Carter stepped closer, his hand moving instinctively to the sidearm at his belt. "Daniels, there's no one in the tube. That tube is empty. We checked every—" "He's been in there since Pearl Harbor," Daniels whispered. "Waiting, breathing our air, listening to us. He knows everything, Captain. Every secret, every lie." Carter's mind raced. Oxygen deprivation could cause hallucinations, but Daniels had been checked just hours ago. His levels were normal. Unless he'd been hoarding air somehow, storing it, using it to— "Step away from the tube, sailor. That's an order." Daniels' hand moved to the tube's outer door mechanism. "He said if I let him out, he'll stop taking our air. He promised." "Daniels." Carter drew his pistol, hating himself for it. "Do not touch that door." For a long moment, neither man moved. The only sound was the eternal hum of the submarine. the heartbeat of the boat that never stopped, that would keep humming even after they were all dead. Then Daniel's shoulders sagged. His hand fell away from the door. "I'm sorry, Captain. I don't know why I—" Carter holstered his weapon and grabbed Daniels by the shoulders. "Look at me, Daniels. Look at me." The young sailor's eyes focused, confusion replacing the distant stare. What happened?" "You're going to sickbay," Carter said firmly. "Rodriguez, escort this man to Dr. Venn. Full psychological evaluation, now." As Bull led Daniels away, Carter stood alone in the torpedo room, staring at tube number 4. It was sealed, empty. It had been empty since Pearl Harbor, since before Carter even took command. But something made him walk forward, something made him press his ear against the cold steel, and in the silence between his heartbeats, he heard it, breathing, slow, steady, coming from inside the sealed tube. Carter jerked back, his skin crawling. Impossible. He was hearing things. The stress, the oxygen levels, the lack of sleep, it was all catching up with him. He turned to leave, to get some rest, to think clearly. That's when he saw the condensation. Inside the outer door's viewing port, a thin film of moisture clung to the glass. Fresh, recent, as if something warm and alive had been breathing against it from the inside. Carter stood frozen, his rational mind battling against what his eyes were showing him. He'd been a submariner for 23 years. He'd seen men die. He'd seen boats sink. He'd seen things that would haunt him until his last breath. But he'd never seen moisture form inside a sealed torpedo tube from the inside. It was impossible, unless something was in there, something breathing, something alive. He reached for the viewing port, his hand trembling slightly. The glass was cold under his fingertips, but the condensation was real. He could trace patterns in it with his finger. As he touched it, the moisture seemed to shift, to move, to form shapes. And for just a moment, he could swear he saw letters forming in the fog. H-E-L-P. "Captain." Morrison's voice behind him made Carter spin around. His executive officer stood in the doorway, concern etched across his young face. "Sir, you've been down here for 20 minutes. The crew is asking questions." 20 minutes. It had felt like seconds. Carter looked back at the viewing port, but the condensation was gone. The glass was clear, dry, as if it had never been there at all. "I'm fine, Jake," Carter said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Just running some checks." Morrison didn't look convinced. "Sir, with respect, you haven't slept in 48 hours. Maybe you should let Dr. Venn give you something, help you rest." "I'll rest when we figure out where our oxygen is going," Carter snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. Morrison didn't deserve that. None of them did. "I'm sorry, Jake. You're right. I'm tired, but we don't have time for me to be tired. Not yet." Morning brought no answers, only more questions. Dr. Venn reported that Daniels was stable but confused, unable to explain his behavior. "It's like he was sleepwalking," Venn said, his clinical voice unable to hide his concern. "But his oxygen saturation was normal. There's no medical reason for the hallucination." "Then give me a non-medical reason," Carter demanded. Venn hesitated. "Captain, have you considered that maybe Daniels wasn't hallucinating? That maybe he actually heard something?" Before Carter could respond, the boat's alarm cut through their conversation. Rodriguez's voice boomed through the intercom. "Captain to sonar, immediately!" Carter ran. Chen was hunched over her equipment when he burst into the sonar room, her face illuminated by the green glow of her screens. "Contact, Captain. Bearing 270, range 8,000 yards. "Japanese?" "No, sir." Chen looked up, and Carter saw something he'd never seen in her eyes before. Fear. It's us, Captain. The signal matches the USS Phantom exactly." The command center erupted into chaos. Morrison pulled up the charts, comparing their position to the sonar reading. "That's impossible. We're the only American submarine within 500 miles. Carter studied the display. Chen was right. The acoustic signature was identical to their own boat. Same engine sounds, same propeller signature. Even the same minor mechanical quirk in the starboard shaft bearing that gears had been meaning to fix for months. "Could it be a recording?" Morrison suggested. Japanese playing back our own sounds to confuse us? At 8,000 yards? Chen shook her head. Sir, it's moving, changing depth, responding to the current. It's not a recording. It's something else. Carter's mind worked through the possibilities. A sister ship? No, every boat had unique acoustic characteristics, as unique as fingerprints. A perfect replica? Impossible to build without detection, which left only one explanation, and it was an explanation that made no sense at all. Maintain course, Carter ordered, his voice steady despite the ice in his veins. Chen, keep tracking. Morrison, silent running protocols. I want every man at his station and ready for anything. Captain, Morrison said quietly, pulling Carter aside. What if it's... Don't, Carter cut him off. Don't say it. Don't even think it. But they were all thinking it. The ocean was full of ghost stories. Ships that sank but were still seen sailing. Submarines that went down with all hands but were still heard calling for help. The USS Grunion, lost with all hands in the Aleutians, her crew still supposedly sending distress calls years after she went down. The USS Wahoo, ambushed in shallow water, her sonar signature still picked up by boats passing through the area. The USS Scorpion, gone in the Atlantic, her reactor still humming in the deep, according to sailors who swore they'd heard her. Boats that vanished into the deep and were never found. Were they still down there, somehow? Still hunting? Still fighting their last battle over and over in the dark? The Phantom contact shadowed them for 6 hours, always 8,000 yards away, always matching their course, their speed, their depth. Chen tried everything. Active sonar pings, passive listening, frequency analysis. Nothing revealed any more information. It was there, solid and real on the screens, but utterly inexplicable. It's like looking in a mirror, Chen muttered at one point. But the reflection is moving on its own. Carter watched the screen, his mind working through scenarios. If it was enemy action, it was unlike anything he'd encountered. If it was friendly, why wouldn't they identify themselves? And if it was something else, what could possibly create a perfect acoustic copy of his boat? Sir, Chen said suddenly, her voice tight. It's changing course. Coming toward us. The command center went silent. Every man held his breath as the contact turned, accelerating, closing the distance. 7,000 yards, 6,000, 5,000. Weapon status? Carter asked, his hand on the periscope grip. Torpedoes loaded and ready, sir, came the reply from the weapons officer. But, Captain, what do we shoot at? It's us. 4,000 yards, 3,000. Carter could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to choke on. His finger hovered over the dive alarm, ready to take them deeper, to evade, to run. 2,000 yards. And then it stopped. Just stopped, dead in the water, as if it had hit an invisible wall. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Both boats hung in the water, separated by less than a nautical mile, facing each other like gunfighters on a street. Then Chen gasped. Captain, it's transmitting. What? Audio transmission, sir. Underwater telephone. It's... Oh, God. Carter grabbed the headset from her. Static filled his ears, the hiss and crackle of underwater acoustics, and then, through the noise, a voice. His voice. USS Phantom. This is Captain William Carter. You need to turn back. You need to leave these waters immediately. What you're hunting here, it's not what you think it is. Turn back while you still can. The headset fell from Carter's numb fingers. Morrison caught it, listened, and went pale as snow. That's your voice, sir. But you're not transmitting. Carter felt the world tilt beneath him. Chen, triangulate that signal. I want to know exactly where it's coming from. Her hands flew over her controls. Sir, I'm getting readings that don't make sense. The signal is coming from our position, not from the contact. From us, from somewhere inside the Phantom. Rodriguez's voice cut through the confusion. Captain, we're getting reports from all over the boat. Men are hearing things, voices, their own voices, coming from the bulkheads, from the pipes, from everywhere. Carter made a decision. Battle stations, seal all compartments. No one moves without our authorization. Chen, I want that contact tracked every second. If it so much as twitches, I want to know about it. But as the crew scrambled to their stations, the Phantom contact began to fade. Not moving away, not diving, just fading like a photograph left too long in the sun. Within minutes, it was gone. Not a trace on any screen, any sensor, any instrument, as if it had never been there at all. "Oxygen levels, Gears?" Carter asked. "Down another 15%, Captain. At this rate, we have maybe 48 hours left." That night, Carter couldn't sleep. He stood in the control room, watching the depth gauge, the pressure gauge, all the instruments that kept them alive in this metal coffin 300 meters below the surface. 47 men trusted him to keep them safe. 47 families were waiting for them to come home. And he was failing them. "Can't sleep either." Dr. Venn appeared beside him, holding 2 cups of the terrible coffee that somehow tasted better at depth than anywhere else in the world. Carter accepted the cup gratefully. "Too many questions, not enough answers." "I've been thinking about Daniels," Venn said carefully. "About what he said, about someone being in the torpedo tube." "Venn, we checked. There's nothing in there but—" "I know what we found," Venn interrupted gently. "Or rather, what we didn't find. But Captain, have you ever considered that maybe we're looking at this wrong? Maybe the question isn't what's in the tube. Maybe the question is what was in the tube, what we brought aboard without knowing it." Carter turned to face the doctor fully. "Explain." Venn pulled out his worn notebook, the one he'd been keeping since the oxygen problems started. "I've been going through the boat's history, every mission, every patrol, every crew member who's ever served aboard, and I found something interesting." He flipped to a marked page. 3 years ago, just before you took command, there was an incident during loading at Pearl Harbor. A footlocker was brought aboard, assigned to a new officer who was supposed to report for duty. "Supposed to?" Carter prompted. "Ensign Marcus Webb, 23 years old, fresh from the academy. He was killed in a training accident 2 days before his scheduled embarkation, but by then, his personal effects had already been loaded onto the Phantom, including his footlocker, which was stored temporarily in the torpedo room." Carter felt his mouth go dry. "Tube number 4, Venn nodded. "The footlocker was supposed to be removed and sent to his family. But in the chaos of war prep, in the rush to get the boat ready for patrol, it was forgotten, filed away, left behind. You're telling me we've been carrying a dead man's belongings for 3 years?" "I'm telling you," Venn said softly, "that according to my calculations, the oxygen consumption anomalies started exactly 3 years ago, the day that footlocker was loaded aboard." Carter stared at him. "That's impossible. A footlocker can't breathe. It can't consume oxygen." "No, sir. But what if there's something inside it? Something that's been slowly, invisibly, drawing air from the boat's supply. Something that's been trapped here, unable to leave, unable to rest." Carter wanted to dismiss it, wanted to laugh it off as exhaustion and stress talking. But he'd pressed his ear to that tube and heard breathing. He'd seen condensation form from the inside. He'd heard his own voice warning him away. "Show me the records," he said. "Everything about this Webb. Everything about that footlocker." They spent the next 2 hours in the tiny officer's wardroom, going through files and logs that hadn't been touched in years. The story that emerged was tragic in its simplicity. Marcus Webb had been an exceptional student, top of his class. Volunteered for submarine duty specifically, had requested assignment to the USS Phantom by name because his grandfather had served on submarines in World War I. He'd been so excited about his posting that he'd shipped his belongings ahead, wanting to be ready the moment he arrived. 2 days before embarkation, during a routine training dive, his breathing apparatus had malfunctioned. He'd drowned in a training tank, trying to save another sailor who was in trouble. A hero's death, but a death nonetheless. His body had been recovered, buried with military honors, his family notified, but his footlocker, already aboard the Phantom, was forgotten in the paperwork shuffle. "I checked with Pearl Harbor archives," Venn said. "The footlocker is still listed as being on board. It was never removed, never catalogued. It's been here all along." Carter closed the file slowly. "What do you think is in it?" "I don't know, sir. But whatever it is, I think Marcus Webb's last breath is in there too, trapped, waiting. And after 3 years, it's running out." They assembled a small team: Carter, Venn, Rodriguez, and Morrison. No one else. At 0300 hours, always that cursed hour, they made their way to the torpedo room. The boat was quiet, most of the crew sleeping in their narrow bunks, dreaming whatever dreams submariners dreamed when they were too deep to see the sun. Tube number 4 waited in silence. Carter unsealed the outer door with hands that trembled despite his best efforts. The mechanism groaned, metal on metal, a sound like something old and tired finally giving up. Inside, among the grease and shadows and the smell of oil and metal, was a single footlocker. Stenciled on the lid, ENSM, Webb, USN. Jesus, Rodriguez breathed. Morrison crossed himself, a gesture Carter had never seen the young officer make before. Venn simply stared, his scientific mind trying to reconcile what they were seeing with what they knew to be possible. Carter pulled the footlocker out. It was heavier than it should be. Much heavier, as if it contained not just belongings, but something more substantial. Something with weight, with presence. "Open it," Venn said quietly. Rodriguez looked at Carter. Carter looked at the footlocker. His hands moved to the latches. They opened with a soft click that seemed loud as gunfire in the enclosed space. Inside the footlocker, folded with military precision, was an officer's uniform. Never worn. The brass buttons still gleaming, the fabric still crisp and new. Beneath it, a photo album bound in leather, filled with pictures of a young man with his family, with his classmates, with his life. Personal letters, tied with string. A diary, its pages filled with neat handwriting. All the pieces of a life that never got lived. All the dreams that never came true. All the service that never got rendered. And beneath everything else, wrapped carefully in oilcloth, was a SCBA, a self-contained breathing apparatus. Standard rescue equipment. Except this one's gauge showed it was empty. Had been empty for years, but the valve was open. Had been open all this time. Slowly, invisibly, creating a microscopic leak that pulled oxygen from the boat's air supply. Not enough to notice at first, just a trickle. But over 3 years, over 1,000 dives, over 100,000 hours of operation. "It's been breathing," Rodriguez said softly, his voice carrying a note of wonder and horror. "The whole time it's been breathing our air." "No," Venn corrected, his voice clinical but shaken. "Webb has been breathing our air, or whatever's left of him. His last breath, trapped in the apparatus, mixing with ours, trying to join the crew he never got to meet." Carter reached into the footlocker and picked up the diary. The last entry was dated the day before Webb's death. The handwriting was excited, eager, full of life. "Tomorrow I report to the USS Phantom. I've dreamed of this moment since I was a boy, listening to grandfather's stories. I won't let him down. I won't let my family down. I won't let my boat down. Whatever happens, wherever the Phantom sails, I'll be there. I'll serve with honor. I'll do my duty. I promise." Carter felt something break inside his chest. This boy, and he was just a boy really, 23 years old and full of dreams, had made a promise he never got to keep. And somehow, someway, he'd been trying to keep it anyway. For 3 years, in the dark, in the cold, in the crushing pressure of the deep. "Captain," Rodriguez asked softly, "what do we do?" Carter looked at the uniform, at the diary, at the empty oxygen tank still trying to draw breath after all this time. And he understood. Webb had never let go, had never accepted that his death meant leaving his boat, his crew, his duty. He'd held on, year after year, dive after dive, taking just enough to stay connected to the world he'd lost. "We give him what he wanted," Carter said quietly. He lifted the uniform with both hands, treating it with the respect due to any officer who'd given everything for his boat. "We make him part of the crew." They carried everything up to the mess hall. Carter sent word through the boat. "All hands assemble. No exceptions." The crew gathered, sleepy and confused, wondering what could be so important at 400 hours. When they were all present, Carter stood before them with the uniform in his hands. "Men," he began, his voice carrying through the compartment. 3 years ago, a young officer was supposed to report to this boat. His name was Ensign Marcus Webb. He never made it. He died in training trying to save another sailor. A hero's death. He held up the uniform. But his belongings made it aboard. And somehow, in a way I can't fully explain, so did he. He's been with us all along, watching over us, taking just enough air to stay connected to the boat he loved, the boat he died trying to reach. The crew listened in silence. Some looked skeptical, others looked frightened, but most looked moved, understanding in a way that only submariners could understand. Our oxygen problems, Carter continued, were caused by this. He showed them the empty SCBA, Webb's last breath, trying to mix with ours, trying to join us, trying to serve. He set the equipment down gently. Men, we're going to do something now that's never been done before. We're going to officially assign Ensign Marcus Webb to the USS Phantom. We're going to give him the service he earned but never got to complete. Carter opened the ship's official log and wrote, Ensign Marcus Webb, reporting for duty, posthumously assigned to USS Phantom, effective immediately, commended for dedication above and beyond the call of duty. He looked up at the crew. Ensign Webb, you are hereby officially assigned to the USS Phantom. You've watched over us for 3 years. You've kept your promise. Your duty is complete. You can rest now. The crew stood at attention. 47 men, honoring a 48th who'd been there all along. And as they stood there, every man present later swore they felt it. A change in the air, a lifting of some weight they hadn't known they were carrying. The temperature seemed to rise. The darkness seemed less oppressive. Somewhere deep in the boat, a pipe that had been whistling faintly for 3 years went silent. They held the service at dawn, when the first light was touching the surface far above them. Carter read from the book of naval traditions, the words that had been spoken over sailors for centuries. We commit Ensign Marcus Webb to the deep, where he has served faithfully and well. They placed the uniform in torpedo tube number 1, the place of honor. With it went the diary, the photos, the letters, everything that had been Marcus Webb's life and dreams. And at 0800 hours, in the cold waters of the Philippine Trench, they fired the torpedo. It launched with a gentle hiss, carrying the uniform away into the deep, where it would sink forever, spiraling down through the water column, past where light could reach, down to where only darkness and pressure ruled, finally finding the peace that had eluded it for so long. After the service, Carter checked the oxygen levels. They were rising, slowly but steadily, returning to normal. The inexplicable drain had stopped. The air tasted cleaner somehow, fresher, as if a window had been opened in their steel tomb. Dr. Venn performed another round of evaluations. Daniels was clear-headed, remembering nothing of his episode. The other crew members reported feeling better, lighter, less oppressed by the weight of the deep. It's like the boat can breathe again, one sailor said. Carter knew what he meant. Captain, Chen called from sonar later that day. The Phantom contact is back, sir. Carter's stomach tightened as he moved to her station. Where? Same position as before. 8,000 yards. But, sir, she looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. It's not shadowing us anymore. It's moving away, heading east, toward home. Carter watched the screen as the identical acoustic signature, their ghost, their shadow, their lost crewmate, faded into the distance. Moving at flank speed, racing for Pearl Harbor, for home, for the place where Marcus Webb had wanted so desperately to begin his service. Racing for waters it would never reach, but trying anyway, one last time. Goodbye, Marcus, Carter whispered. Fair winds and following seas. And then it was gone. Really gone this time. Finally gone. The screen showed empty ocean, no contacts, no ghosts, just the USS Phantom, alone in the deep, as submarines were meant to be. The Phantom continued her patrol, the oxygen levels stabilized completely. The crew worked their stations with the easy efficiency of men who'd been given an unexpected gift, the knowledge that they weren't alone, that those who came before still watched over them, and that duty extended beyond death itself. Beyond time, beyond the boundaries of life and the grave. They completed their mission, sinking 2 enemy transports and a destroyer before returning to Pearl Harbor 23 days later. Carter filed his report, omitting certain details that would never be believed, that would sound like the ravings of men who'd been too long at depth. But he kept Ensign Webb's diary, the one from the footlocker. He'd read it cover to cover, learning about the young man who'd wanted so badly to serve. And on the last page, in handwriting that hadn't been there when they sealed the tube, written in pencil that shouldn't have been able to write underwater, were 4 words. Thank you, fair winds. Carter showed the page to no one. Some things weren't meant to be shared, only honored, only remembered. The USS Phantom received orders for another patrol 2 weeks later, but before they sailed, Carter made one addition to the boat. In the officer's wardroom, he mounted a small brass plaque. It read, "In memory of Ensign Marcus Webb, USN. He reported for duty 3 years late, but never missed a single watch. Fair winds and following seas." Years later, long after the war, Captain William Iron Hand Carter would stand at the Submarine Memorial Wall in Pearl Harbor. His hand would find the section where names of officers killed in training were listed. And there, among hundreds of others, he found it. Ensign Marcus Webb died in service to his country before he could serve aboard the USS Phantom. Carter would place his hand on that cold bronze and whisper, "You made it, Marcus. You made it to your boat. You served with honor. Your watch is complete. Rest now." And every time, he would feel the slightest warmth under his palm, as if the sun had touched that one spot of metal, as if someone, somewhere, was saying thank you. The ocean keeps many secrets. The deep holds many souls. Sometimes those souls find their way home, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to be part of that journey, to help a lost spirit find its rest, to honor a duty that transcends death itself. Captain Carter carried that honor with him for the rest of his life. And when he died in 1982 at the age of 73, his last words were clear and strong. "Tell Marcus Webb his captain said well done. Tell him his boat is waiting. Tell him his watch is finally over." They scattered his ashes at sea in the waters where the Phantom had hunted, where 47 men and 1 ghost had lived and fought and survived together. And sailors in the area swear that on certain nights, when the moon is dark and the sea is calm, you can still hear it. The sound of a submarine running silent through the deep. The USS Phantom, eternal patrol, with a full complement now. 48 souls, 47 living, 1 who refused to let death stop him from keeping his promise. This is the story that submariners tell when the hour is late and the drinks have been flowing. The story of the oxygen thief who wasn't stealing at all, who was just trying to serve, trying to belong, trying to keep a promise made to a grandfather long gone, to a family that never stopped mourning, to a boat that never knew it carried an extra soul until that soul was ready to leave. Rest easy, Ensign Webb. Your duty is done. Your promise is kept. Your boat remembers you, and somewhere, in the deep places where submarines go, the USS Phantom still sails with a crew of 48, forever and always. Fair winds and following seas, sailor. Your watch is complete.